The WNBA is currently navigating a significant structural reorganization behind its executive doors. While public attention remains fixed on season highlights and individual accolades, the league is undergoing a corporate shift that will fundamentally alter its most prominent rosters. Billionaire owners and venture capital syndicates are preparing for a series of acquisitions that mark a departure from the league's traditional operations. This transition occurs as the WNBA faces the complexities of sudden, large-scale commercial success. The arrival of Caitlin Clark has brought unprecedented revenue and interest, leaving the league to manage a level of wealth and expansion that it was previously unequipped to handle. The era of modest growth has been replaced by a more aggressive competitive landscape. With the 2026 calendar approaching, the league has finalized the logistics for an expansion draft that is already creating significant pressure for existing franchises. The Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo are set to join the league as well-capitalized corporate entities with a clear mandate to acquire the talent that has recently elevated the league's profile. The regulations for this draft represent a difficult exercise in roster management. Existing teams are permitted to protect only 6 players. All others will be available for selection by the new franchises. For a team like the Indiana Fever, which has built a highly efficient offensive system around its core talent, these rules present a substantial risk. The market value of the entire roster has increased, making their secondary players primary targets for expansion teams looking to build immediate competitiveness. Analysis of the Indiana Fever's roster highlights the difficulty of these upcoming decisions. The franchise will prioritize protecting Caitlin Clark, who serves as the foundation of their commercial and on-court value, alongside Aaliyah Boston. Beyond those two, the choices become increasingly complex. Protecting a high-volume scorer like Kelsey Mitchell may require the team to expose versatile players such as Lexi Hull or Temi Fagbenle. Hull's defensive contributions and perimeter shooting, along with Fagbenle's efficiency in transition, have been essential to the team's recent success. If the front office miscalculates, Portland or Toronto could dismantle the team's depth. Expansion syndicates are utilizing sophisticated analytics to identify the specific players who best complement a star-led system. Consequently, the Fever may be penalized for their own success, as they currently hold more valuable assets than most other franchises. Simultaneously, Nike is maintaining a strict information blackout regarding its upcoming product lines. Despite the global visibility of the Caitlin Clark era, there has been a total vacuum of data concerning her signature shoe. This level of confidentiality is rare in the modern sports market. Even well-connected broadcasters have found it difficult to secure details, as the corporation treats the launch with the same level of security as a sensitive internal operation. This strategy appears designed to create artificial scarcity and high market demand. By the time the footwear is released, it is projected to generate more revenue in a short window than some franchises have produced in their entire history. This launch signals a shift in power, suggesting that the traditional structures of the league are being superseded by massive individual marketing vehicles. As financial stakes rise, a clear divide has emerged between the league's established veterans and its new era of stars. High-profile figures from the league's earlier periods have publicly attributed the recent spikes in the salary cap and the new collective bargaining agreement to their decades of service. However, economic data suggests a different driver. The current financial boom is a direct result of record-breaking television ratings and merchandise sales. For years, the league operated under a subsidized model that required consistent support from the NBA. Now, the market is dictating value based on current viewership and bottom-line impact rather than tenure. This has created an internal tension as the old guard realizes that legacy status does not necessarily translate to market power in this new economic environment. The current state of the WNBA is defined by a transition toward a more clinical, data-driven business model. The upcoming expansion draft is the first stage of a league-wide recalibration. While Portland and Toronto move to acquire established talent and Nike prepares to shift the league's financial ceiling, the veteran establishment is struggling to maintain its influence. General managers are now forced to make sacrifices that would have been unthinkable in previous years. The Indiana Fever front office faces the most precarious position, as they must decide which players to risk losing to protect their championship window. The era of sentimental roster building is over, replaced by a period of strict mathematical necessity. As the 2026 expansion draft nears, the WNBA is becoming a league defined by corporate strategy and market value, leaving its former identity behind. The financial volatility of the WNBA is not limited to roster management, it is codified in the league's labor relations. In late 2024, the Players Association exercised its right to opt out of the current collective bargaining agreement, a move that effectively placed a deadline on the league's existing economic model. This decision was a calculated wager on the league's skyrocketing valuation. The players are no longer seeking incremental raises, they are demanding a fundamental restructuring of revenue sharing. Under the current agreement, players receive a percentage of revenue only after the league hits specific high-water benchmarks. In the new economy, those benchmarks have become obsolete. The negotiation table is now a site of friction between a legacy framework and a reality where media rights deals are worth billions. The 11-year media rights agreement, valued at approximately $200 million annually, has fundamentally changed the leverage held by the labor force. Owners are now faced with the reality that the talent, specifically the talent driving these ratings, is aware of the exact dollar amount they bring to the table. This shift in capital has sparked an unprecedented infrastructure arms race. For decades, WNBA teams shared practice facilities with their NBA counterparts or utilized public university gyms. That era ended when the Las Vegas Aces and the Seattle Storm invested tens of millions into dedicated, state-of-the-art training centers. These facilities are not merely luxury amenities, they are recruitment tools and operational hubs designed to maximize athlete longevity. For a franchise like the Indiana Fever, the pressure to upgrade is immediate. As the market value of their roster increases, the demand for professionalized environments grows. A team cannot manage a high-value asset like Caitlin Clark using legacy facilities. The cost of entry for new owners has mirrored this escalation. While early franchises were purchased for nominal sums, the Portland and Toronto expansion teams have entered at a price point exceeding $200 million. This high barrier to entry ensures that the new ownership groups are not merely sports enthusiasts, but sophisticated venture capitalists and real estate moguls who view the league through the lens of asset appreciation. The Toronto expansion represents a strategic pivot toward international market capture. Kilmer Sports Ventures, the group behind the Toronto franchise, is leveraging Canada's distinct sports culture to create a standalone brand that is not beholden to the American media cycle. Their objective is to build a roster that appeals to a global demographic, potentially poaching international stars who have previously viewed the WNBA as a secondary market. Portland, led by the Bothell family, is taking a similar approach by focusing on the Pacific Northwest's high concentration of sports tech and apparel industries. These two cities were not chosen for their fan bases alone. They were selected because they offer the corporate infrastructure necessary to support the league's new valuation. The expansion draft is the mechanism through which these new entities will extract value from the existing teams. It is a legalized raid on the depth charts of established franchises, designed to ensure that the new teams are competitive and therefore profitable from their first tip-off. Within this environment, the middle class of the WNBA, the reliable starters and high-level bench players, finds itself in a precarious position. While the top 1% of players are protected by their marketability and untouchable status, the players who provide the actual labor of a 40-minute game are the ones being traded as expansion chips. The psychological toll of this corporate restructuring is often overlooked. Players who built the foundation of their teams are now being treated as liquid assets in a high-stakes game of expansion chess. In Indiana, the chemistry developed between the core roster and their rookie star is the very thing being appraised by Toronto and Portland. The expansion teams are not just looking for points, they are looking for the tactical intelligence and defensive grit that allows a star to flourish. This is a cold-blooded calculation. By taking the glue players, an expansion team can effectively handicap a rival while accelerating its own growth. The corporate strategy extending from the league office to the boardroom of Nike reflects a broader trend of controlled scarcity. The decision to delay the release of signature merchandise is a classic psychological marketing tactic. By starving the market, Nike ensures that the eventual launch will not just be a retail event, but a cultural phenomenon. This silence also serves a secondary purpose. It prevents the legacy veterans from piggybacking on the marketing spend. If Nike were to flood the market with general WNBA apparel now, the revenue would be distributed across a wider, less profitable net. By focusing exclusively on a single high-impact launch, they consolidate their influence and dictate the terms of the new economy. This approach has created a rift among other apparel sponsors. Brands like Adidas and Puma, who have their own roster of WNBA stars, are finding it increasingly difficult to compete for airtime and shelf space in a landscape dominated by a single narrative. The tension between the old guard and the new era is best illustrated by the disparity in endorsement earnings. For 20 years, a WNBA superstar's primary income came from playing overseas during the off-season. This required a grueling year-round schedule that often led to premature physical decline. The new financial model renders this overseas hustle unnecessary for the league's top tier. This creates a class divide within the locker room. You have veterans who spent 2 decades playing in Yekaterinburg or Istanbul to make a fraction of what a rookie now earns from a single social media partnership. This is the source of the legacy insecurity that permeates the league's public discourse. The veterans are not just fighting for credit, They are fighting for relevance in a market that has moved past the era of subsidized survival. The legacy parasites are clinging to a narrative of shared struggle, but the market is rewarding individual impact. The upcoming collective bargaining negotiations will likely center on the concept of equity over equality. Historically, the league's small revenue pool meant that salary increases were distributed relatively evenly to keep the entire ecosystem afloat. In the new economy, the market movers are demanding a larger slice of the pie, arguing that their presence is the primary driver of the league's new valuation. If the league moves toward a model that favors individual market value over collective distribution, the internal politics of the WNBA will become even more volatile. This is the brutal mathematics of a maturing league. Professional sports is not a social program. It is an entertainment product where the highest earners are those who generate the most viewership. The transition from a cause-based league to a commerce-based league is painful, and it requires a level of executive ruthlessness that the WNBA is only now beginning to exhibit. As the league moves toward its 2026 expansion, the role of the commissioner has shifted from a brand ambassador to a corporate liquidator. The task is no longer to convince people to watch. It is to manage the explosive growth without allowing the infrastructure to collapse under its own weight. The logistical challenges of adding teams in Toronto and Portland are immense, requiring a complete overhaul of the league's travel protocols, scheduling software, and officiating standards. The referee confusion mentioned by observers is a symptom of a league outgrowing its own operational capacity. When the level of play and the financial stakes accelerate faster than the league's ability to regulate them, the result is the current state of executive chaos. The witness protection program jokes among team executives reflect a very real fear that no roster is safe in an era of aggressive expansion. The Nike information blackout is also a test of the league's autonomy. By allowing a third-party corporation to dictate the timing and nature of its biggest marketing moment, the WNBA is signaling a level of dependence on global capital that could be dangerous in the long term. If Nike holds the keys to the league's most profitable assets, who is really running the WNBA? This is the question being asked in the corridors of the league's rival owners. The billion-dollar foundation of Caitlin Clark is a double-edged sword. It brings the building, the table, and the room, but it also brings a level of corporate oversight that the league has never experienced. The old guard operated in a vacuum where they were the biggest fish in a very small pond. The new stars are operating in a global shark tank where the players are Nike, Disney, and multinational venture capital groups. Ultimately, the 2026 expansion draft will serve as the great reset for the WNBA. It will forcibly redistribute talent, break up established dynasties, and test the loyalty of fan bases that have only just begun to form. The Indiana Fever's front office is currently engaged in a silent war of analytics, trying to find a way to protect their chemistry while adhering to the rule of 6. Every player on that roster is being scrutinized not just for their shooting percentage, but for their replacement value in a market that is suddenly hungry for talent. The expansion syndicates in Toronto and Portland are not looking for a fair draft. They are looking for a competitive advantage. They want to capitalize on the work Indiana has done, effectively looting the roster to build their own corporate identities. The shift toward brutal mathematics is the final stage of the WNBA's evolution into a major professional league. Sentimentality is a luxury the league can no longer afford. The meat grinder of 2026 will chew up legacies, rosters, and the participation trophy mentality that defined the league's early years. When the smoke clears, the WNBA will be unrecognizable to those who followed it during the legacy era. It will be a leaner, more aggressive, and significantly more profitable entity, but it will have lost the quiet, communal atmosphere of its past. The corporate titans are not here to preserve the league's history. They are here to maximize its future earnings. For the players, the message is clear. Your value is no longer determined by your years of service, but by your ability to survive the restructuring and remain standing when the next check is cut. The final element of this transition is the global integration of the league's broadcast and digital strategy. The league is currently renegotiating its digital rights, moving away from fragmented streaming platforms toward a consolidated global model. This is intended to mirror the NBA's international reach, ensuring that a fan in Beijing or Paris has the same access to the Clark economy as a fan in Indianapolis. This global footprint is what justifies the $200 million expansion fees. The owners are betting that the WNBA is not just a domestic success, but a global export. This requires a level of brand consistency that the league has struggled with in the past. To achieve this, the league must sanitize its image, moving away from internal drama and toward a polished corporate presentation. The silent war in the executive offices is, in part, a struggle to control this narrative before it goes global. As the deadline for the expansion draft protection lists approaches, the tension in the Indiana locker room is a microcosm of the league's broader anxiety. The players know that their professional lives are subject to the whims of boardroom mathematics. A single trade, a single draft pick, or a single corporate endorsement can alter the trajectory of a career overnight. The Indiana Fever are the primary target because they are the primary success story. In the new WNBA, being the best doesn't just make you a champion, it makes you a target for the next wave of corporate expansion. The meat grinder is waiting, and for the Indiana Fever, the challenge is not just winning on the court, but surviving the fiduciary treason that is currently being planned behind closed doors.